This is the Business Chat Podcast. Welcome again to the Business Chat. My guest today is Robert Rodden, and the innovator that he's representing here is Smash My Trash. And this is probably I don't know if I have a favorite one for this season. This is the most interesting thing that I've talked about, though, this year that I found. Robert and I met professionally last year, longer story. We've been finding one another again on LinkedIn. And he talks a lot about smashing trash. It sounded like a game show, Robert, when I first saw this. Smash my trash. So I'm going, what is this? How are you today, man? Thanks for coming on the show. Doing well, man. Doing well. Well, before we hit record, you and I were talking about just kind of there's so many things that could be covered on this from the industry. The Smash My Trash is in the obvious industry. But today I really want to talk about the innovative nature of this and a little bit of your story finding it, because I'm just going to be blunt actually on this whole thing and be off script. This is not your background. So
not my background.
Why don't you just, we'll get into kind of, the story and then tell folks what it is. Before we go further, for those of you with an attention span like most Americans, you can go to smashmytrash.com and check it out. And then you can come back and listen to this if you're very intrigued. But I'm always told by my producer to go ahead and plug this stuff in the first minute. Before we go any further, as I mentioned to you, our shtick around here is to bring a local drink of sorts. So Robert, without any more delay, what are you drinking?
I am drinking Stumptown coffee from the Reed Shop in the Vinings Jubilee here in Atlanta.
Reed Shops. That's your local spot where you walk in and they go, "Sup, Robert?" Usual. Yep. Yeah. Local coffee shops. Stumptown Coffee. Many know. Great. Well, I am drinking Disco from Disco Coffee Roasters today. A new name and delicious coffee. And they're kind of a wholesale kind of craft brand, slowly starting to rear their head. Check out Disco Coffee Roasters. And another thing I should mention, we'll link all of this in the podcast notes from Smash My Trash. You can find Robert on LinkedIn. Obviously, most of you know where to find Stumptown Coffee and know about their roasters. If you haven't, check them out. It's awesome coffee. But check out Reed Shop if you're in the Atlanta, Georgia area. For folks that know the area, Robert, they probably know the shop. If they don't, and they're driving around even listening to this by chance, where is Reed Shop? Where's the cross streets? Where can they find
Paces Ferry and 285, so it's sandwiched between Atlanta Road and the Battery.
Cool. That's great when you can plug just an actual local shop. So Reed Shop, cheers to you guys. Thanks. Well, let's do the virtual cheers again, man. Thanks for being on the show. Let's get into this. Cheers to you. All right. Let's get on with it, man. Well,
I just spilled coffee. Wow.
We're looking for...
Off to a bad start.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
Clean the laptop. As we lose video, it starts going glitchy. No, it's you're shaking. Well, we'll transition over to some bubbly water here in a minute. Well, we're looking at innovators. We're looking at innovations. It's an innovator series, and I don't know that you could be any more innovative than to take an old concept, an old industry, and really inject kind of a new concept, if you will. But on the surface, I basically see, and my producer and I think most folks looking at this see from the name, of course, is very helpful, aptly named. You're creating more room in a trash container. Take it from there. Where am I wrong? Is that correct? What does Smash My Trash do?
That's basically what we do. We do that on an industrial scale. So our customers save money and we reduce their environmental footprint by compacting whatever is inside of their open top dumpster. So we're talking about 20, 30, 40 yarders, the kind you see at industrial parks, home renovations. Basically, if they have to pick up the dumpster and transport it to a landfill or a transfer station, it's in a container that we can compact. So you might have a dumpster that's just full, 100% with pallets, and we can back up our truck so it's mobile to that dumpster and compact it down to, say, 25% full. So as you use our service more, you're hauling a lot less frequently. You still need to haul. We don't do the hauling component. We're just compacting the trash that's in there. Now, most of our customers are routed, recurring. It's like a subscription. We're there about twice as often as they would normally haul. But we do things like yard cleanups, warehouse cleanups, inventory reductions. We've done some certified destruction for a medical supply company. And we work with, some parts of the industry you would never expect. You'd think logistics parks, manufacturing, rent, construction, those sort of things. We're in with groups like the movie industry here in Atlanta. We do a lot of smashing for them.
Right.
Collision and auto glass repair shops, art galleries. They ship these canvases with massive crates around them, and those take up a lot of space in dumpsters. So it's not as I don't know, direct as an industry as you think. You think you just find white roofs on a map and that's where the dumpsters will be, but they are all around us all of the time.
So okay, and I'm on your site and I see on-site smash service. It's more of your routed, as you put it, subscription, recurring service. The things you're naming right now are more those, it says custom smash solutions. So a custom smash solution would be a construction rather job site. Like you said, film sets and ongoing. So those are custom.
Yeah, more on demand type work where they're not a regular
out there. It is. Yeah.
Yes. If your stream is constant, then we can time our service well. And the value point is that you don't have to watch the dumpsters at all. It fills up and we just keep compacting.
Yeah.
And eventually you get an email notification that says it's time to haul. And that is the time when you call your hauler to trigger that to be brought to a landfill.
Ah, okay. Well, I mean, that's, the obvious, again, innovation. Then thank you for filling that gap in. So you are making room for more trash, 75% more room, it sounds like.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's tremendous, man. Well, cool. And when I say you, Robert, you're coming, representing Smash My Trash as a franchisee. That's the other part we want to talk about today. What's unique is not being the founder, owner, not a requirement of the show, but maybe just as cool, maybe cooler is the perspective, as I mentioned, as a guy that's not from this industry. In fact, I found you doing other things when we first met. Tell me about that story a little bit. Walk folks through who Robert Rodden is, and the first time you saw this and you laughed out loud and then looked closer and went, "Oh, that's great." Anyway, it was kind of cool. So yeah, tell us the story, man.
My background couldn't be any more distant than trash than you would imagine. I mean, the Smash My Trash franchise network, it has ex-NFL players, a lot of people from the business and sales type groups, but there's engineers like me in the mix as well. I'd traveled the world and worked in construction and research and development for different companies, small ones, nonprofits, and large global companies. So I was traveling like crazy, living the corporate life. My wife was working offshore on oil rigs, and we intentionally decided it was time for her to stop working. We wanted to start a family, and with her not working, and then out of nowhere, I got blindsided and got laid off, did not see it coming. We found ourselves both out of a job. So there's kind of this kick in the butt, this impetus that said, do something different than what you're doing. And we just, over time, kind of talked each other into starting a business. I had a website development company that I started in college. And then I had another startup, like an app type thing, about a decade ago. So I'd gone through some of those pain points of having an idea, getting your minimum viable product, finding a customer base, getting more money because you're running out of cash too soon, those sort of issues. I mean, 90% of businesses fail, 90% of startups, right? Those stats aren't very reassuring if you're going to go out in business. But somehow I'd just gotten an MBA from Georgia Tech a few years prior. And in my time off, I watched a webinar on franchising, and the Georgia Tech MBA kicked in. And it's like, there are people out there with a great idea. You find the right opportunity. What they're looking for is access to other driven people and capital so they can scale whatever it might be, this business, very, very quickly, rather than doing it by private investment in their own work. I mean, maybe they're tired after getting to the point that they're at, and they just want to slingshot this great idea into a national or global presence. So the webinar sold me. I'm like, this is something we should do. So the next thing in line is, okay, we got to get money. The same webinar talked about a pretty unknown concept in the US. There's something called a 401k rollover for business startups. And through this mechanism, you can take 401ks from prior employers and roll them into a 401k that owns your business. I feel like I should start over there. It's okay to cut time.
That's good. I like. Oh yeah, we can cut into a little bit, no problem. But yeah, I get it. So the 401k is called what again? 401k?
There's this little known thing called a 401k for business startups. If you have a 401k from a prior employer, it can't be where you work now. You could roll that money out into a business that you own, you start. I mean, technically, your retirement account owns it. You own stock in yourself, the business that you start, rather than stocks in other businesses. It's that simple of a concept. If you have $100,000 in a 401k, you can have $100,000 within a few days as capital for a franchise, for a startup business of your own idea, pretty much everything but real estate. So we used that mechanism once we were aware of it, and we started dating around with different franchise opportunities. It was the same franchise consultant, Kim Daly, who got me, past the goal of seeing past the biases that I had about franchising from an earlier point in life, where I just thought you had to have millions of dollars to do this. Reality is there's lots of opportunities, small scale investments all the way up to the McDonald's of the world, right? And you're somewhere on that spectrum. These consultants work with you at no cost to find the right opportunity. And as we were vetting, we had our top 3, right? And this is pre-COVID. You always have to put that disclaimer.
Okay.
Pre-COVID. Yeah. We're like December 2019, January 2020. And we're looking at these different opportunities. And my wife, who's, she's the pathos to my logo. She's all emotional. She's never as logical as I try to think that I am, I suppose. And she's the logical one. She says to me, trash never stops. And it absolutely did not stop during COVID. I mean, with COVID happening, we still managed to scale the business to the point where, we're happy. Our franchisor is happy. We're meeting the KPIs they had set up before COVID even became a thing.
Sure. Yeah. In fact, I bet you we've compacted more Amazon cardboard in a year and a half or 2 than the prior 10 years, So yeah, definitely trash, if anything, saw kind of a little bit of an uptick. And that's just one consumer's, observation. So you're looking at your top options to fast forward, not that we need to race through it, because it is worth telling the story. You go with Smash My Trash. Talk to me about the experience as a franchisee from day one. Did you meet the owners? Did they come shake your hand? Was it a quick, very transactional email? And I don't know right now if you're sweating going, oh no, I'm going to have to tell how these guys are. But yeah, just genuinely for people listening, just want to understand, what does that really look like? Because you're doing it, you're all casual right now with your denim shirt unbuttoned, but a lot of people have the capital and they're nervous. They're nervous as heck. They go, what does that actually feel like to take that step? Did they court you like you courted them, or was it just, like I said, fill in a form?
So you can see I went from Brooks Brothers to like Canadian tuxedos. It's been a complete life shift, owning a business that is not the corporate world. But franchisor, in our case, and I can't say this about all cases because you basically get the financials of the franchise network and those sort of things as you're screening, and you get to a point where you go to a thing called Discovery Day. And that's the opportunity usually where you will meet the franchisor, the people who started the business, hear their story, hear how the business units they've been operating are going, and how those who are ahead of you have been going. We did that in Indianapolis before we bought into the idea, I suppose. But you do go there. You have a lot of information going up to there. You ask all the questions you have. If the matching seems right, I mean, it's a two-way approval. They're not going to sign unless it's going to work for them. You're not going to sign unless it's going to work for you. So there are those relational things that happen. I mean, we do have to consider in our case that our franchisor is not much older than our franchises. I mean, they started in a couple cities down in Texas just a few years before COVID. In the matter of a few years, they scaled up in Austin and Dallas, and they're scaling up down in Texas. And they said, this is going well enough. This concept makes enough sense that we should just scale nationally, and we should do that by franchising.
So franchising was new when you came in to Smash.
Yes, there are.
It was ground floor. It sounds like you were really one of the first few.
One of the first 20, and there's about 200 or so now. So we weren't the earliest. There were some that got in before it was even franchised. They somehow had seen it in their own travels, or someone told them about it, and they said, "This thing is something that you might like." So there were some that got in. The what do they call those? Not the innovators before the early adopters, and the innovators. Is it the innovators?
That's right.
Your series is aptly named. So the innovators, that was those. Like by the time we came aware of it,
there you go.
Because all of the franchise consultants knew, so they were way ahead of us. Right? It was getting out.
Gotcha. And you knew I was going to do this. Thank you, by the way, for the brief pause. I wanted to interrupt you, didn't have to, and ask about the nature of the national presence. And now I'm on the website. I refreshed. I was on a different page looking at the different franchise opportunities and services. But right there on the homepage, I think answers my question. You're in all 50 states now, or Smash My Trash looks like there's franchisees nationwide.
I believe it's in all 50 states. I don't know the coverage by population. Gut says 30-40% probably. It's we're doing thousands and thousands of smashes every single day across the country. We were the third to launch in Atlanta. There are 5 franchisees in the Atlanta metro. So, there were some that got them before us and after us. But it is a national presence to the point where we're now getting national accounts. People are coming to us, and it's through the people that have either, turnover in their own workforce. Somebody comes from a different company that is using us into that company. The beehive effect is happening, some from that. But we even have cases where somebody saw a video on TikTok of us smashing it at college because we were doing a move in, move out type situation. And they're like, this thing is incredible.
Right.
And it gets on TikTok and the right person sees it. Costs us nothing, right? They called us. That's how you know you're making that.
Yeah, if you're continuing to, and you're leveraging user-generated content that is the kind you want, and it's exciting, and it's people bragging about it, and it's new, and then again, it's familiar. It's folks going, well, wait, this is just trash compaction, and I love this Smash My Trash, just stand there nodding, going, yeah. So that's a great segue. That actually mentioned that bit of TikTok. Right over to one question I've really got. The only one actually. This is just the story and what it does. And again, you guys can visit smashmytrash.com. You can find out, answer for me and write in how many states they're in. But they've got a contact page. Their phone number's up there. But Robert, maybe you can help us with this. Why haven't then the billion-dollar waste management organizations done this?
Ooh, a tough question.
Okay. And I'm not going to make you answer that in such specifics as this. Let me rephrase that then. How is Smash My Trash being received? Is it a disruptor in your mind? Glaze the surface for me if we're not going to go into why they haven't done, because there's a lot, you could ask that about any industry with any innovation. And I know there's a lot of dialogue there. But yeah, give me your thoughts now that you've been in this. Help me out.
Well, it's helpful to
year and some change.
Kind of think about how things have been, right? That's sure I like to live by. Why are we doing things the way that we are, and question those sort of things?
Right.
And it's the case that for a very long time, say construction sites, my background, I've seen lulls, I've seen excavators. If there was a way for a contractor to try to push down on the surface of that dumpster and compact whatever's in there in a pretty uncontrolled manner, they were doing that because they wanted to reduce their hauls, right? So that's real. People on like home renovations, they're flat packing, they're dense packing, they're doing the jigsaw to get as much as they can in there, right? On some sites, we've seen these massive concrete blocks with rebar hooks just hanging out of the top, and they'll put their forklifts in there and drop it into the dumpster to try to smash it. So the need has been there. It's the case that the customer has been asking for something like this. I preface it with that because I'm speculating then. I have to assume that at some point, haulers was aware of one of these things that happens, and they said, you know what, maybe we should do that differently. So you got that track of thinking that, well, they should have known. And then parallel to that, and there's some of these in the U.S., you see them more in other countries, but there has been stationary compactors for quite some time. You can Google it, but it's a device mounted to the ground, and you put a dumpster right up to it, and then a roller comes out and compacts what's there. Then you dock it. The challenge you have is now you have to move that dumpster and bring in another one because it's stationary.
Right. You guys put it on
wheels. Yeah, it's that. Gotcha. That was the real disruptor, is to make it so that every time a hauler, say, your customer here, they have to go to the landfill here 10 miles away. Every time a hauler has to do that, it's 10 miles there, 10 miles back, 20 miles. If you're doing that 4 times a month, 80 miles, right? So you're doing 80 miles, paying all that time, paying for all that fuel. Now, for us, we might be able to make it so you haul 1 time a month, 20 miles of hauling. There's going to be more tonnage in there, so it's a bit more complicated. But our nearest customer might be 1 mile away. So our round trip to service you is 2 miles. And if we just keep coming throughout the month as you need us to get you down to one haul, the mileage driven goes down by a lot, to the point where we've had Trinity consultants use EPA data. We have a tool now that we can quantify this for your exact scenario, so that, that side of things is driving things as well. I went a little bit off the rails. What was the question?
You're not off the rails at all. In fact, keep going. The next question. I love it when folks talk about something they know about or passionate about, because you quickly start going, also this, also that. Don't stop, but let me throw this one on you real quick.
I think that the haulers haven't done it because it undermines their own business. It reduces their revenue by a significant amount, and no publicly traded company is looking for that. So, they in disrupted industries tend to have that characteristic. So that's what we're seeing happen.
Right. And now holding that thought of the idea that the company, not to be named, any of them, hundreds of millions, tens of millions, billions, a large established waste management organization would look at that and turn the other way, or not invest in and even give it a moment's thought, because, as you said, it threatens their business model on the surface. Holding that kind of thought, that way of thinking, move over for a minute and let's come back to that, to this. It creates more. Smash My Trash is creating more space. So less pickups. Am I tracking with you? Yes. Less times you have to have that hauled away. So take us from there, because we understand that, like, cool, you freed up my dumpster. Every contractor listening to this, building spec homes to multifamily living to a big demo site, is going, love it, great, sign me up, no problem. Walmart, Target, IKEA might be like, not really sure, but maybe interested, and probably are. But what really is the energy saving cost innovation? Walk us dummies through, myself at least primarily, maybe only, that needs to hear kind of like, there's got to be fuel saving costs.
The origin of the environmental side of what you're saying. Because the downside makes sense. If we cost less than a haul, you call us versus calling a hauler, you're saving money immediately, right?
You just gave us the third grade math, right? You just freed up 75% of the dumpster. We get it. But talk us through how's that really adding up? What is the cumulative savings?
So
here?
on the and customers on the savings side tend to be 10-20%. Environmental side, it's that distance travel. Every mile traveled, especially by heavy vehicles, and those carrying things like full dumpsters are heavy. And even when it's driving back the reverse trip back to your facility with an empty dumpster, it's still relatively heavy. And the efficiency of the equipment fleets just aren't quite to the point. In most states, California is leading that, but these numbers have been quantified. Basically, how much CO2 you emit for tons and miles driven. And that Trinity Consulting Group has developed this tool to quantify that on each individual case. But if you look at like the simple example I gave, if you've got 80 miles for hauling once a week versus us stopping by and racking up maybe 20 miles, and that's 20 miles back and forth to the dumpster, you're looking at half as much miles driven. And our truck is lighter than their truck, so you got to look at all these detailed factors. That's why it's not as straightforward as like the blanket case, but you're cutting the CO2 footprint of your waste management out of your facility to a landfill down 20, 30, 40%, depends on the specifics. We've seen some pretty far haul distances. You'd be surprised.
And, and with cases being made and carbon credits and offset being chased for 5%, if you're even touching 10, 20, or you set up to 40 in some cases, and we're just talking about, again, emissions, right? Large vehicles moving this smashing unit. And then a month later, let's say, maybe you can drag it out longer than that, depending on, again, how much waste they're generating, that pickup is even less. The combined smash by trash delivery and then your pickup are putting out less emissions combined. But I can see what you're saying. You're again putting a little bit of an Uber hitch in the giddy up of the taxi cab nature of the business model for larger waste management. They're going, well, hold on a second. You're sort of democratizing something. You're giving people tools to be more efficient.
They're more hooked into driver shortages, chip shortages, those sort of things, because they're doing more miles, which is more time as well. And like one great,
and I guess it's, sorry. Yeah, go ahead. I want to hear this. No, please, you go.
One great benefit of the franchising model is kind of the territory protection. So as we start to grow in our first year or two, the shock and effect happens a little bit, and you start to cover these big distribution centers. But as you pick up more and more customers in between points you're already servicing, in between your customer family already, you add more efficiency. The distance traveled between stops, because we make money if we're smashing, not driving. It's the same with hauling. They got to get to the point of drop off. There's a transaction that has to happen. So as the distance driven, less man hours or people hours for driving, all those sort of things, just the density of the system over time helps make it more profitable over time as well.
Yeah, and all respect to anyone listening in the waste management space who's maybe slightly, this is a little bit gets under their skin, maybe hearing this, that I think the cumulative effect of, these large organizations going, maybe we missed something. On second thought, if we partner with a group like this and approach it as a way to, again, it's the race right now, is renewables and carbon and offset and finding ways to be more efficient, putting less junk in the air, and not just that, but these vehicles being deployed less and focusing more on monetizing the efficiency. Maybe this is less of a battle and more of a partnership. I'm not going to get into that because it's not my expertise, and you're a franchisee, although we could talk offline on our second cup of coffee and, exchange opinions. But I appreciate what you're saying, because for anybody watching this, and to pull back a little as just a franchisee, which is very cool, by the way, Robert, as I've looked at things personally to invest, and our audience is also looking at, and it's just you're inundated, right? I was on Start Engine the other day, and I'm like, there's this home beer making kit, and that's a really cool way to do this. And there's just new products all the time. But there's things like this that why we truly handpicked you and this organization for innovation. because it really is like, well, everyone's like, look at this new iPhone case and this solar powered thing, all phenomenal. No, there's not one bit of sarcasm to my tone. You guys are over here going, we're smashing trash. And I'm going, well, that's interesting to me, because like your wife aptly said, trash ain't going anywhere. And we got these big problems that we've got, we need more. And, at first, of course, we were talking, I'm like, oh, this has got to be Robert's company. And you humbly go, no, yes, I know I give off that vibe. And yes, I'm that engineer. Haha. No, but you definitely quickly played the honest card, was like, no, man, look, I'm a franchisee. Let's connect and let's talk. But it was so interesting because I thought that sure feels like some thought of an MIT grad, somebody really putting their head to an old problem. And very cool to see you're just, you're preaching its gospel and stuff, man. So without everyone gets sick of my voice, I want to move on to kind of like the next thing, what's coming, kind of how folks can get involved that are interested, because where this is a little different than my other guests for this series, you bring a franchise conversation here. So first, what could you say to folks that are kind of watching this now? What's kind of coming up for Smash My Trash? Is it more expansion? Are you guys going to put in a 100,000 Rivian vehicle order like Amazon just to go? What's kind of the next step to increase that efficiency, let's say, or what are you hearing through the pipeline?
Well, for us as a franchisee, it's really about kind of a controlled scale, making sure we have the right team in place, they're trained right. We've got the trucks we need to service our customers, make sure we have no misstops. We haven't had a single misstop our entire time of operations, and that's with having one truck in an accident that required it to be out of service for 6 months. We still didn't miss any stops. So that's the reality of the business side. But we've grown from 2 years ago to 4 trucks right now. We've still got some growing to do. Mm-hmm. So we're just focused on that controlled scale. Smash My Trash as an organization
as an organization,
we've kind of fill out the map, or starting to fill out the map nationwide. There are still franchises up for grabs, as I understand it. On the website, there's a franchise opportunity link that you can follow through on. But we've expanded now into Canada. I don't know actually what other international plans they have, but the Canadian ad is in the works. So, it's becoming bigger than just the United States.
No, that's great. That's really cool news. And again, like I said, we know the context in which you're here is to tell your story, and you're doing just that. And that's great. So again, as you go over, folks, you'll be able to click on smashmytrash.com. They've got the franchise opportunity. Takes you to smashfranchise.com if you want to go there directly. And the information, again, will be up on the screen for those of you watching, and this will all be linked in the episode. So at the end of this kind of conversation, we're coming to kind of a close here. We're recapping again that this is a old concept put on wheels. This is franchisable. This is obviously a healthy, growing, startup, but now a franchise, a healthy organization. You come into this just before the dreaded COVID breaks out. There's less than a football team of you guys. Now there's well over 200, thousands of smashes a day. It's a pretty incredible story. Can folks find you guys? I'm assuming, I just didn't check out all the media. There's got to be a bunch of just great, YouTube videos and all of that.
You just Google Smash My Trash.
Watching the Smash.
Yeah, you'll go. Yeah, there's been 2 different kid shows, 2 different YouTubers that do shows for kids about, garbage trucks and things like that. So they did ones on Smash My Trash
coverage.
We're there, Instagram, show up on TikTok. Every franchise has their own social media presence. So you can follow our individual group. It's the Atlanta Southwest and East franchise, where you can connect with me on LinkedIn as well.
All right. Yeah, we'll link that up as well, Robert. Remind me to get that information from you. So in general, as again, the testimonial as the franchisee himself, you give this thing 5 stars. It looks like you're having a blast. Like you said, you went from, what did you say before? Stetson to Levi's? You said it better. You were in a 3-piece tux, and now you're sporting denim. Yeah.
Brooks Brothers to the Canadian tuxedo. It's true.
There you go.
Our life has changed a lot. Our trucks operate at 5:30 in the morning. And unless I had a very early flight out of Atlanta airport or coming home, there's no reason to be up that early, right? So, it goes back to the people. We've got an operations manager now who's come to the reins. He's an individual who we couldn't ask for a better ops manager. He loves to tell his testimony.
That's awesome.
He was homeless at one point, and he had some addiction problems. Cleaned himself up, and we found him underemployed for what we thought his potential was, and hired him on. And he's been helping us grow our team. Wow. So we've got 4 drivers. I mean, it's everything. All signs are trending in the right direction. We're showing no signs of slowing down. So we're just one story, though. I mean, there's lots of franchise opportunities out there. And talk to one of the consultants. It really was a sit down of, what are you looking for in life? What sort of finances do you have or could you get? And structure your life as you see fit. We just went on a mission trip. I was gone for 2 weeks. I didn't stress about the business.
Oh, nice.
If I'd done that on corporate time, I would have wasted all my PTO, right? So owning your own business is it's freeing up my time in a way that is allowing me to do other things. So it's been very good.
Well, those of you listening on the business side, right, in commercial construction and distribution, food and beverage, it's on the site. I'm reading the website right now. People sometimes go, wow, Drew's really versed. I'm not versed at all. I'm reading a website. Manufacturing, product destruction, recycling. You check out Smash My Trash. Look at ways that you can reduce cost to your business. You can be more mindful of the environment, but it's just practical. Again, it's, in my opinion, just third grade math. You look, you'll be able to reduce the amount of times that you need pickups from your dumpsters. There's really nothing else to talk about. For those of you looking for in the entrepreneurial spirit and you're looking for a change, again, we'll link up Robert's information so you can kind of message him, find out more about his experience. But ultimately, you could probably skip that. I would say, right, Robert? They can go right to the Smash My Trash franchise page, express interest, and get the process started if you're interested. I'm sure these folks would be happy to give you the 1, 2, 3s. Man, thank you again so much. It's a fast 30 minutes, huh? It just kind of flies by. There's a lot more we could cover. Again, brother, it was good to see you. We'll link up the coffee beverages that were here today. Cheers to those local and not so local roasters and local coffee shops. And we will hope to see you again and just be watching you on LinkedIn, man, for just cool stuff you're doing.
Thank you, Drew. It's been awesome.
Cool. Thanks so much, man. Cheers. We'll take care. We'll see you soon.